All right, welcome back. This is part two of the Tell It Like It Is podcast. I have my friend here, Wendy, and we were talking. And the last thing you were saying is about invisibility. Go ahead.
Yeah. When visibility is a painful thing, it's in the Black experience, it's sort of everything, I mean, it is, you know, I mean, when I look at films, classic movies from the 30s, 40s, there are no Black people.
Mm-hmm.
There may be one or two that's,
Mm-hmm.
working in the
Right,
train.
right.
But, and then I look at photographs, and they're all white people. It's really, I'm very uncomfortable. So it tells me about a really horrible time when we were so divided that there was no interaction.
Right.
And and then too, actually, again,
How much of that has changed, Wendy?
well, how if someone's running in down the street and they get killed, right? You still have people who don't, lives are not integrated. Like we don't know each other.
I still feel if you're talking about when you look at a movie like The Great Gatsby or something like that, something like this. When you look at some kind of film like this, you see like the white people have their own reality going.
Yeah.
And if not just the movie, but in general, you knew that the Blacks were either washing the dishes or the driver, or if they were lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But that's pretty darn invisible.
Right.
That photograph from the 50s, that's pretty darn invisible.
And a lot of, well-to-do white people had no idea the realities of what the other was. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that not much of that has really changed. Mm. And I think Black people have had a lot of social mobility, mm-hmm. and we're making strides. And I think, white people are forced to deal with us and see us, but still, in places like the workplace or mm-hmm. the churches that we show up in, it's not an open arms. Like, oh, I don't know any Black people. You're a Black person in my church. I need to have you over. Yeah. Or you're a Black person at my firm. I need to have lunch with you.
But that's like white people's desperation to break out of this.
I don't think that's happening though, for the most part.
Really?
For the most part.
So you're just saying that. You were giving examples.
Right.
Yeah.
Of stuff that's not happening. And I feel bad. I don't want to overgeneralize, because obviously this is not everyone, every place. Sure, right? But
these are real experiences though.
I think for the majority, there are even good intentioned white people who don't know how to communicate, who don't know how to break that wall, the invisible wall. Mm-hmm. And they see them and they may even want to. They go to a church that tells them they should be. Mm-hmm. And in their hearts, they want to, but there's so much social divide that it's not easy.
No, I mean, I was trying to talk to someone about some of my things that are important to me. And there's an awkwardness trying to put into words like my feelings and my interactions, like without sounding very self-conscious, without sounding like my actions are self-conscious versus just like an immediate like experience, like if I try to talk about when I went into the Trenton Farmers Market one day, I was meandering, and there was, a few people around, in one of those middle sections. And so, I don't know, just I mean, it was really interesting what they were doing. And this woman in charge of, in fact, I've wanted you to have a conversation with her, mm-hmm. named Stephanie. And she runs this like not-for-profit that it's all about healing. It's exactly what it is. And the first thing that people tend to associate with healing is, let's say, drug addiction, right? Mm-hmm. But geez, it's like, growing up Jewish and coping with, not fitting in and not having blonde hair and blue eyes and, not wanting to look yourself in the mirror, and
Was that a thing for you?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Went to a
Did you
private
have?
school.
Did you have? Yeah, I mean,
I
listen,
definitely had identity issues.
you're so well accomplished. What? Tell us what school you went to.
Oh, for as a kid, you mean?
Undergrad.
Oh, undergrad, Middlebury, and then transferred to UPenn in
Mhm.
Philadelphia, and then studied for a couple of years and went to Harvard Graduate School,
And studied.
landscape architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're so we do walks and we just look at architecture, and so much of architecture shows what our mindset is,
Mhm.
right? And
Yes.
I think you've learned how to put mindset into spaces and how spaces reflect mindset.
Well, mindset is abstract. I don't really know what you mean by that, but I think we were talking, and it's more like it shows values. It expresses a worldview. So mindset, yes, exactly. And it's just inherent in who we are, what we make and how we see things. So, it's like the color purple is purple. I mean, you can identify things. I mean,
Yeah.
I say color purple, but
really quick, so
Yeah.
you said that
sorry.
it's okay, we're on the same page. You said that you wanted to blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah, that's saying,
So was that in the boarding school?
no, it was a day school, but it was just when these private elite schools were letting Jews in. So my
Mhm.
parents like, oh, goody, we want you to have the best education, and sometimes your parents make mistakes.
Mhm.
So that's that spirit of assimilation.
Sometimes I struggle with, and this is probably my own lack of, like, I just see you as white, right?
Yeah.
And I if you tell me like, oh, I was oppressed like by white people, I'm like, really?
Oh my God. Well, okay, the American experience. So Episcopalians came here, right?
Mhm.
And then the next group that came in search of a better life. So they were kind of shat on by the Episcopalians. Well, so the next group does that to the next group,
Right.
and it's a constant thing where you do unto others the way you were treated, unfortunately,
Right.
and that's a whole nother thing. But
what grade
I
did
think,
you start going to that private school?
Kindergarten.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
So did it start in kindergarten? Or?
Well, no. I think this. I think probably it was more like end of middle school.
Teenage years.
Yeah, I think.
So you kind of felt no one was pointing out any differences about you until.
Well, no, you heard it. My brother was at the boys' school, private
Right.
school, and they were like brothers. But usually, children repeat what their parents say.
Yeah.
So you would get anti-Semitic thoughts, and they'd say to my brother, or they, write Jew canoe on a car or something like that. And so it's a little more subtle with girls, but that comes through too.
Got it.
And I think it's you just want to fit in, and everyone else is Christian. And
so did anyone say anything to you? Do you have any memories or any incidents where people said anything to you?
No, but I was more aware of a handful of a few other Jewish kids that were like, obviously Jewish, but I played sports, so I was, more part of.
You were able to
engaged.
get by.
Yeah.
Because you played sports.
Yeah.
So but can you?
It's kind of a social thing,
right? Can you tell me like what you recall in terms of other Jewish kids and what you saw?
Well, I knew they looked different, so it was more my reaction, right? I mean, when you're vulnerable, and you want to blend in,
Right.
if the other kids aren't so blendable.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got by because you were an athlete, and athletes kind of give each other a pass, and you're all athletes.
Well, I mean, I think
And
it's just because,
you're in the bubble with them.
you're in the bubble. It's not like you're.
But you saw the Jews outside the bubble. Can you tell me, like, what were they experiencing? Did you hear anything? What did you see?
I mean, I think it's just the way kids, like,
Isolate them.
There isn't like a connect, like, so kids, when I went to the school, that like everyone's family knew each other. They were half.
Got it.
Someone's middle name was someone else's last name. They were all connected, and
Right.
and they all lived in the same area. So I mean, my mom.
So you were from
carpooled.
a different area. You had a different name. You were accepted, but you didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, but
So how much of that was because you understood a narrative that you didn't belong, and how much of that was someone telling you didn't belong?
Yeah, it was mostly the former. Yeah.
Right. So it was kind of like built up in your mind, and any separation that you experienced, you kind of said, "Oh, it's because I'm a Jew," or because I'm.
Well, I mean, yeah.
So over time, did that break down, or did you get confirmation
of that it was okay to be Jewish? You mean?
Did you get confirmation that people were against you or not accepting of you, or did you get confirmation that you were just like everyone else? What were your follow-up experiences to that?
Well, I mean, I definitely was accepted.
Right. It sounds like, teenage is a time of identifying and finding yourself and these kinds of things. And again, I like to highlight the fact that you think, you're from a well-to-do family, you're going to a well-to-do school, everyone there is white, you would just fit right in and have the classic white American experience. But no, you're there feeling like an outsider. No one's really saying that to you, but you're still kind of like, I'm not like Becky because my name sounds kind of Jewish.
But in some ways, I felt like it'd be better to be just Black, and then I'm, like I'm obviously different. I mean, I don't know. Like I don't have this like mind game. Like,
exactly.
And my,
so then my question was, did you assimilate into whiteness, or were you more ostracized?
Oh, assimilated. I mean, I was like, I had a boyfriend, and from different like families in the blue blood, families. And so I remember there was like a time where at service or something, I don't know. It's like I wanted to go to the Episcopal Church. It's like I would read the books, and I would read it, and I would say that reply, and I'd get on my knees, and I was like, I kind of like this.
Right.
So it's really trying to fit in and not be separate. It's just that that you're separate.
Right.
You're part of a different community.
Did you marry Jewish?
No, I always sort of joke that the Jewish guys are going for that blonde hair. And my parents, like, geez, you at a certain point in life, you're like, maybe it'd be good to marry a Jewish guy, because then you can have some history together and maybe help each other become more religious in terms of rituals, or have some connection rather than like empty calories, Jewish.
Exactly.
Persecuted but don't know anything,
Right.
So, but my parents were like, oh, don't worry, we don't care. They're like, look, there are good people everywhere. All Jews aren't good, so it's like, really?
Right.
So it's
right.
like,
no, I appreciate you sharing that. And like, again, you have such a rich story. You've traveled the world, you've done all these things. Like, we really have to make a time, and I'll have you back, and we can keep talking. And so much of what I want to do next is to just build on these kinds of conversations, have panel, and just grow community-wise. The goal is not to have conversation. The goal is to have rich in-person
I'd love to
community.
live together. Wouldn't that be nice?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the conversations are that are on the podcast are just excerpts of the real life and all the things that we're doing.
I just want to add one more thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there anything you want to end with?
Well, two things, because when I told you my story about feeling different, and you were like, oh my God, you're a white person, how do you possibly do that? So I had a friend I met when I was in between college and grad school, and we were living together. And she was like very blonde, very, I mean, from this, she, her history, she was like Riggs Bank family, blue blood family, that whole thing. And she felt like I did, that she was different. And it was because, she'd been in Germany, her dad was, ambassador in the Kennedy administration, but she felt different and she didn't belong because she was just in Germany and lived. So I like to think of, one of my favorite books is Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. And I think good literature is something where I can identify with the girl in the book, the little black girl, who has a white doll and wants to be the white doll, and wants to, that kind of thing. So I think seeing my friend who couldn't be more blue-blooded and white felt that way. It's like, oh my God.
You said blue-blooded. I'm assuming I know what that means, but what does that mean?
So, it's terrible. So the blue blood society is like that Bryn Mawr school, like old family, old families, wealthy families who were,
I got you. I mean, I've heard variations of this thought, but I think on some level we all want to be that blue-blooded.
Yeah,
family,
that's the issue of that. Yeah.
You want to be rich, wealthy, you want to have the privilege, you want to have the distinction, then the assumption is they're living better and their life is easier. And that's what we're working towards, is to give that better life.
Yeah, I think you could have a better life without wanting to, that's like, that's the opposite. Like they're very visible. And you know what? I don't think, I think that very visible, and the rest of us just want like equal playing field,
But like your friend, you can have the look, you can have the money and all of these things, but if you in any way stand out, then you're not in. And
it's in your mind too, though.
Right.
But
you didn't just make it up because you're crazy.
No.
It's real.
Right.
And that's the thing, right? With terrorism, right? One small act of terrorism leads to fear in the rest of the population. So one small act of trauma, can traumatize the whole entire population.
Yes.
So it can leave you feeling isolated, even though nothing happened to you, and that's why it's important for, people with privilege to reach out, because other people are having these experiences, even though it wasn't caused by you. And, just by you having that privilege over them, it's important that you reach out, because you're inflicting an indirect trauma and pain by you saying, that's not my problem. Yeah. You said two things. Do you have something else?
Well, I was mentioning this woman, Stephanie, and who has this organization that's it's 3 letters and then because I'm dyslexic, I can't remember the 3. Where they go.
It's okay.
But I want to get that name to you at some point, the organization. But it is all about like each of us has a vulnerability and we're damaged, not damaged, but healing. I'm sorry, healing is the word I really want. That there are things, as you said,
areas to grow.
That we've all had some trauma,
right?
And healing. We need healing to be able to enjoy each other more and ourselves, and be more, open, not stifled by things,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. I appreciate it. We're in the holiday season here. The year is coming to an end. What are your holiday plans?
Oh, it's going to be very different. It's going to be fun. We're not going to be family because there are a lot of new babies, and and so people are exhausted in different places, and you have to be careful, babies and this COVID.
Yeah, sure.
But most, I think, people are tired. My sister-in-law. So we're actually going to a friend's Christmas Eve, and which is kind of fun,
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm making twice baked potatoes, and so that's really a treat to be with other families,
Yeah,
and
share the love.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then yeah, and yeah, so there's
We have to make some New Year's Eve plans.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you for finally making the time. We've been trying to make this happen for months.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we were able to get something on the books.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. Okay. We'll end there.